what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Brothers in Tech is a weekly podcast focused on personal and home technology, helping provide you, our fellow brothers and sisters in tech, with some information, assistance, and recommendations. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brothers in Tech here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson, as those of you watching on video can see over in the bottom corner here. And then off to my right, which is me pointing this direction, is my brother in tech, Brian Jackson. Brian, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm just clarifying. My name is there as well. So it's
right.
Not just
your name
you.
Is.
Yes.
Hold on.
Nope.
There it is.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, you're right.
Pointed to. Great.
Yep.
Yeah. We both have our names up there. What do you know? How convenient is that? This is Brothers
that was fun.
in Tech.
Are we done or is that
We're done. That was our episode on how to identify yourself on a live stream video.
Nice.
This is Brothers in Tech. This is a show where we get together, and Brian and I are actual brothers. We live on the opposite ends of the country from one another, but we still get together every week and talk technology, and primarily talking about home, family, or personal technology. So getting into kind of things that you might use every day, or things that you may be interested in starting to use in your everyday life. And we like to explore different topics every time we get together, and we will have a topic to discuss today as well. Right, Brian?
Yeah. Right.
We got a topic
we do have a topic. Yes,
we do. I'm clarifying. I want to make sure we do have a topic.
That's right.
That's
right. You may not be prepared, but I have thought about this. Yes. So,
do we have notes? Did we prepare something for this?
Oh, we did. Well, I did. Yes.
Have I seen these notes? Do I know what we're talking about?
No. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Does it really matter?
No, I'm just going to sit there and nod my head. I will tell you. Okay. Now, just before we get into our topic, we are going to talk about something tech related in a minute, I promise. But I had some people that were telling me last night, they were viewers of the show, and they were just commenting about some of the things they like. And they're not family members, which is always nice and a plus to hear.
Okay. I didn't realize those two things weren't,
right.
One and the same.
So,
okay.
So the thing was they commented about how much they enjoyed, the fact that we're brothers and we kind of talk with one another, and sometimes they're can be a little biting towards each other, which is fine. But what I thought was really funny is they said that they can tell very obviously when one of us is on a roll, is on a tangent, is just going kind of deep, and the other one's starting to zone out a little bit. They can tell watching the faces. They can see I can see Alan's kind of drifting away. Alan is not engaged with what's going on. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, that checks out. That's probably right.
Yeah.
That is
right. I thought maybe it had something to do with how much drinking is happening during the time. How much is left in Alan and Brian's glass by the end, right? And whether we're really engaged with what's going on. So
that's true. I think it's funny. So if you see me, I'll just ask anybody to kind of hit the little thumbs up button whenever you see one of us starting to kind of zone out a little bit, maybe losing interest in what the other person is having to say, or wanting them to wrap it up a little bit. So we'll just keep that in mind. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Brian, what are we talking about today? We're talking about the health app, and we
are talking about the Apple iPhone health app. Correct.
Right. So just to kind of set this up, as Brian just said, it says the iPhone or iOS health app. So probably won't mean a whole lot to anybody who's not on a iPhone or iPad device at all. But we know that there's tons of iPhone users out there, and it's an app that comes installed with your phone. When you turn your phone on, the health app is there.
Yep.
It is running from the time you start your phone up, and it has some great valuable information and some ways that you could use it. I know for a fact a lot of people that see it, first time they open it up, you see some basic information that we're going to explain in a little bit. And then they're like, okay, well, that's all it does. And they've kind of signed off. They've ignored it now going forward, not really using it. And that's not what you should do. There's a lot you can do with this health app if you're on a iPhone device. So we want to kind of talk you through what it is, what it will do, and how you can make the best use of it as we go forward. All right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
let's be honest, Alan. We've mentioned this before. Apple is not very good at educating the users on all the things that its devices can do. Right?
Very
I think
true.
Apple has always had the perspective, in my opinion, that they want you to jump in and just start playing with the device, and they want you to stumble upon things over time. So I kind of think that there's a little bit of a purposeful, process that they want you to go through, which is use the things initially, play around, and then they actually want you to stumble up across new things in the future. But unfortunately, that can lead people not to get the most out of their devices. So I think that's one of the things we want to bring today is there are some things that you may not have any clue that your phone is tracking and or can track, so that you might have a benefit with looking at your health. So are you
Yeah,
nodding
I
off
think
already? Or no?
what did
Yeah.
you say? Could you repeat what you just said over the
I
last
didn't
couple
get it. I
minutes?
didn't get a thumbs up or anything yet, but
No.
I just wondered.
Um, I do think that's a good point. You're right. Apple doesn't do very good in the whole explanation thing. And in some apps that works. Some apps, I think, some operations on the phone, it is good to get in there and just kind of learn it and feel it out.
Right.
The health one, I'll admit, unless I really took the time to sit down and go through it and figure out what all I could do with it, I could see how people would really glance over it pretty quickly without spending time on it. So we're going to kind of talk through that and hopefully help everybody make the best use of this app on your phone, especially when we're talking about health. It's something I know many people are interested in, and they're buying a lot of products that are health related products. They're tracking health in other devices. Maybe this health app might actually be a good way to put it all in one place a little bit easier for you.
Yep.
So Brian, how about I'm going to turn on your phone first. Is that okay?
Okay, sure. Let's
make sure you take off anything you don't want us to see.
Sorry. Yeah, I had to get some of those notifications off. Yep. Go for it.
There we go. All right. So let's talk about this. This is the health app. When you open it up on your Apple iPhone, or is it on the iPad?
That was a good question. When we mentioned iOS earlier, I said iPhone, and I just immediately thought, I don't know if it is. I'm pretty sure it can be. I just don't think it is.
I will verify that while you are setting up this part.
Please do. Yeah.
Tell us what we're looking at, Brian.
Yeah. So this is this would be one of the screens that could pop open when you open up the health app. And if you'll notice down at the bottom, there are three kind of tabs that you could open into. One is called Summary, one says Sharing, and then one says Browse. And I'm underneath the Browse right now, which is, it's going to give you all the categories of health information that it can put together in one place. Alan, you and I mentioned this briefly before we got on the air here, that I think the health app itself is very similar to the Apple TV app, right? Anybody that has an Apple TV and knows that there's an Apple TV app on there, and we've talked about it in the past, how we thought, initially when it came out, it was really somewhat useless, right? It was a place that was going to show you the things that are on other apps that you might want to go to, right? But it also had very little access to several of those other apps. So, and it still does, right? Not to get off topic, but Netflix is not involved in all of that. But now I think we're all starting to see, or at least I am, from the Apple TV side, the benefit of that type of app, because it does bring together lots of bits of data. That's the same thing that I think the health app is trying to do. And that may be the reason why when they first put it out, people didn't see the benefit from it. They were using another app, choosing to do all their data through that particular app, and not realizing that their phone and these other third-party apps can bring things together. So what you're looking at here is these are the categories, the health categories that that the health app can provide you with information or store information about. So you can see activity, body measurements, on down through other data allows you to go and see some more specific things that might be there. So if I pull that up, you can click or be able to get data that you could input either from other apps or manually yourself. But these are the main ones. These are the ones that I think we want to go over a few of them today to tell you, what is it that it's going to be recording automatically just from your phone? And then how might we be able to bring in data from other sources as well? So, I think that may be a first part we ought to talk about, Alan, is that this is a way to bring data in from lots of different devices and apps. right? And of course, the very first device that it automatically pulls in from is the phone itself, right? And the
So
phone itself
natively,
has lots of things.
so even if you did not own any other device for monitoring your health or any other app you purchased for health tracking, out of the box, the health app on the iPhone, and it is just iPhone, I did clarify, it's not iPad.
Okay.
On the iPhone, the out of the box Apple Health app will track a few functions, but
Right.
not many by itself.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so think about it. Your phone, because of the way that it has lots of ability to do different things, like if you turn it sideways, it recognizes you're turning it sideways. It has some sensors in it that can be very beneficial for basic movements, right?
Okay.
If you put it in your pocket and you keep it in your pocket all day long, it will recognize how many steps you've taken throughout the day, because it recognizes the swing. The accelerometer that's in your iPhone is going to register when your leg swings, or when the contact with the ground, and makes a small kind of a pedometer movement. So it's going to give you movement like that. It's going to give you what it estimates to be your how far you walked that day. And I do believe, Alan, if I'm not mistaken, it won't use GPS data to actually measure how far you've gone until you tell it to. If you were doing it as part of a workout and said, by the way, I want you to use my GPS to see the true distance that I'm traveling. And that's a good thing that it doesn't do that. It's a good thing that it's not constantly doing, because that would wear your battery down tremendously.
Oh, that's true. GPS will wear that battery down. You're right. So that's a good point. But at the same time, if you really want to get specific about exactly how far you went, I mean, you do have the option of giving it capability to track it on GPS.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. If you go out for a walk and you've got an app on your phone that you say, I'm going for a walk, and it's tracking, a lot of those apps will go and start using your GPS for that particular workout. And that's going to log in. But even if you don't enable any GPS, it will get what it estimates to be the distance that you traveled that day. And that's just by normal stride length. It recognizes how tall you are and what your normal stride length would be every step. And then says, okay, you did 10,000 steps. So you walked, 4.5 miles.
It does an approximation based on the length of your stride. And it's tracking that by the movement and swing that the phone experiences as you walk.
Right.
And then if you've already entered in somewhere your height, the phone doesn't know your height by default, but if you put in your height, it then can use that to extrapolate what a distance may be, right?
Yep. And so I think that's really important, right? Is that if you're going to use anything with health, and we'll mention this again later, do make sure that your body measurements are in there and that you update those regularly. If you're someone that tends to go through transitions of different, weight, body fat, and all of that sort of thing, the more data you can give it that is accurate that way, because it won't recognize those things unless it's getting it from a different sensor. But if you put those things in, then all of your data becomes more accurate.
So just again, kind of clarify, by default, the iPhone with your health app open will track your movement, like the amount of movement you make in a day. Steps that you take. It can approximate flights of stairs. So it can estimate that based on not only how the phone is moving up and down, but also your stride and pace going up. So it'll track all of that. So you can, if all you wanted to know is how much am I moving throughout the day? Your phone in your pocket with the health app running will track that and give you a summary of that right away.
It will. Okay. Yeah. So if I click on activity, right. So you'll see right there
these are all your activity metrics for today.
This is just showing you for today. I have been sitting at my desk all day long and doing very little walking. But as you can see, that it's recognizing now. Here's something key to understand about the health app. The health app is really smart when you connect it to other devices. So I happen to have an Apple Watch. Alan, I think you do as well. When it knows that you have an Apple Watch, it knows that the Apple Watch should be the default of recognizing your steps. Right? Because I don't carry my phone everywhere, but I do have my watch on all the time when I'm walking. So The watch itself has its own accelerometer. It understands, when the arms swing and, how many steps you're taking. It's be able to approximate that. So your steps are actually going to come from the watch if you have an Apple Watch connected to it. And then it'll default back again to the phone if you do not.
So is it clear? Is it safe to say that if you have a watch, Apple Watch, and it's obviously tied in with it, your measurements and the whole movement side of thing are going to be more accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
More accurate.
No question.
Not to say that the phone can't track your movement by itself, but if you really wanted to get a more precise amount of movement, having the watch on your wrist and it's tied in, it's going to feed data from that the watch collects into your phone, into the Apple Health app. And that your data is going to be a lot more refined.
It is, yeah, and just think about it again. If you carried your watch all the time, let's say you strapped your phone to your leg in the morning when you got up, and you kept it to your leg all day long. It may actually get better data that way than a watch would because you can swing your arms faster than you actually are walking, but your leg swing is going to be. But we know people don't do that. I mean, now people put them in their pocket. Sometimes they set them down. But the fact that the watch is there and it's actually recognizing when you're truly standing, not standing, when you're moving around. So I think you're going to get a better data from that. Okay. Plus, as we will talk about a little later, that you can get all sorts of other data from the watch that starts to feed into this, right? It's got other sensors that are really useful. So
at this point, though, we're kind of seeing the max of what you're able to get natively just using the phone by itself. It's really just this movement for the most part that you're getting access to. Brian, before you move on to the next category, can you just go back up to the steps for me? Yeah, there at the top. I just want to make sure I'm reading that correctly. So 1232. Okay. I have mine as well. I just want to kind of bring up and see how we're comparing. Oh, wow. Look at that. That's That's a lot. That's a lot more than. Oh, sorry. I blocked my phone. That's a. Wow, is that 45? Am I reading that right? 4583. Okay, yeah. That's more than what you did. Okay.
Yeah. You do realize you're 3 hours ahead of me, right? And that's plenty of time
you still got time to go catch up. All of a sudden, immediately after this recording, I see Brian's numbers jack up.
There is no question. That will.
No. I only bring this up.
The challenge is
This is probably one of the only few days that this actually happened. So I'm just making sure it's noted.
Yeah.
So that's fine. All right.
Can I also mention we have historical data in here if we'd like to look at any of that?
No, I think mine's not tracking historical data. I don't think. I think that's voided out or gone. All right. Fair enough. Right. I know not to pick a fight on this one because you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to beat me on this. But anyway, go right ahead. All right. So that's movement. Yeah.
So just recognize there are some other things that are going on in here. Energy. Anytime you see something like energy, it's not going to be coming from your phone, right? Energy is anytime that it's starting to try to say how much work you're actually doing, not just how far you're going. There's no sensor for that, right? The phone itself does not have a sensor for that. So that's where the watch, or if you have another, device, maybe it's a Garmin or something that is also fitting in. Yep. One of those that actually is recognizing heart rate, blood flow, that sort of thing. Then it can start to do some calculations on how hard you're working and the amount of energy you're putting in. So, if I didn't have a watch here connected, most likely you just see steps. You would see maybe the running distance if I took the phone as I was running, that sort of thing. All right. Okay. So it's pretty standard about movement. But
it's going to add on these other metrics based on what other devices or apps you're using to feed data to the health app.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. Got it. All right.
Yep. So I'm gonna go back here and I want to show something maybe before we get too far. That's probably assuming you haven't jumped in and used this health app before. When you do, open it up, and probably most importantly, if you see in the top right here, you'll see the little icon for my profile, me as a person. If I click on the profile, okay, this is where you need to visit really early on if you want to start using the health app. You need to go to this and make sure that you're filling out some very important things. So health details, right? This is where if I click on that, you can actually give date of birth, you can give your blood type, you can go in and add information that might be beneficial for someone else to find.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, this is probably the most important part about the health app is that it can become your health record,
Yeah.
right? It's actually made to, if I were to go out on a run and pass out on the sidewalk and someone were to come and find me and I had my phone with me, it's made to where if I'm not conscious, they should be able to take my phone. And I have turned it on. There's a setting in here, which I would highly advise people to do, that says that someone should be able to get to my health records without having to unlock my phone.
Yes.
Okay. And for those of you who have seen that before, you can, on your lock screen, you can tell it. I think it's when you tell it you want to shut it off or something, and it says, do you want to, what is it, the medical ID or the call SOS or something like that, right? There's all these options.
Yeah. Just, I really want to make sure people are clear on this. I mean, if you fill in your health details, and there's even the medical ID option up there to kind of show you what information would be available to someone that got your phone if you were incapacitated or hurt or unconscious or anything for any reason. This medical ID screen is the information that they would then have access to. So again, they can't unlock your phone. They can't get into anything else on your phone, but they can get into the medical ID if you've given the phone in your settings permission to do that.
Right.
Very important, because again, like Brian said, if you, I had a good friend who was on a bike accident and terribly unconscious, like absolutely unconscious. And luckily they had a phone. Someone who found them was able to pull up the medical ID. When they called 911, they were able to give a lot of that information, and that helped expedite a lot of things for them. So very important to fill this out and keep it up to date. Because again, this is what,
especially if you're terribly unconscious, as you said. I mean, not just unconscious, but if you're terribly unconscious.
I mean, like 100% unconscious,
like bad unconscious,
like all the way unconscious. Right. Good point. Yeah. Okay. That was kind of dumb for me to say.
That's okay.
Right?
That's all right.
Yeah,
I like it. So
that's
but as you can see, Alan,
Mm-hmm.
here's this shows you what I've enabled it to do, which is share my information on emergency calls, which says that if I were to actually, even on my watch, I think if I were to tell it I need to call an emergency, or I need to, on the lock screen, go to the emergency, it will then share that information with the emergency services, and then also have it on my lock screen so that someone else who grabbed my phone could be able to see, blood type. Am I an organ donor? Obviously, if these are the things that people need to know in emergencies.
And Brian, I'll let everybody know, where you choose those options is if you were to go up to the edit button up in the top right corner on this medical ID screen, you would be having a list of where you can enter some of this information, but there's also 2 toggle boxes that you can switch on. One of them is, do you want to show the emergency access when your phone is locked? And do you want to share it during an emergency call? So if you turn both of those on, it does mean that somebody can get to your medical ID information when your phone is locked, or when you're trying to make an emergency call. The option comes up to be able to show that as well.
Yep.
So that's good.
And that does not mean that they have any additional access to your phone, right? That just means that there's one piece that it's going to allow to come through when it believes that it's important to do so. So
is the screen that you're seeing right now, this medical ID screen, is what they would see. Okay, great.
Yep.
Good.
All right. So let me go back here and show you a couple other things. So on that screen, yes, I know people are.
Can I show it?
Someone is jumping on me about my weight. Yes.
So we have somebody asking about your weight. Really wanting to clarify: is that really actually your weight?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hartman. Yes, that is my weight. I may not have updated that recently. I can neither confirm nor deny as to whether that weight is higher than that at this point or lower than that. But thank you for calling attention to that. Yes.
Good question.
So if we're looking at the information on the health app here, I mean, I think it's incredibly important to visit that first, give access, put in there the emergency contact people, so that if someone were to get this and you need to have someone contacted, they'll know who to contact. And once you do that, and you're actually putting in your height and weight, that's information that, Alan, I'm kind kind of jumping ahead to some of our tips on this, but revisit that, right? Revisit that often, right? That's not only giving information for the medical assistants, but it's also helping to provide the foundation for good data to come out of the health app. So,
well, and just like you were saying with tracking movement, to be able to really approximate how far you've walked, for example, it has to know your height in order to get the approximate, your steps, the span of your steps, and all that. It takes all that to give you the most accurate data you can. So yes, having your health details up to date, height, weight, and so forth. Height, you pretty much have to enter. There's not really a app necessarily to automatically give your height for you. Weight, obviously there are some tools we can talk about in a minute, some other things to help with that, but getting those health details in there is important. You're right.
Yep. The other thing that I'll just point out really quickly here is that, so there's a bunch of features in the middle. Those are things that I would highly suggest going through kind of painstakingly, going one by one to confirm, is this the way I want it set up or not? Do I want my health records to be delivered to my doctor? Do I want them available? Do I want to download? I went actually today, the first time I'd ever exported all of my health data. Just in case something were to go wrong, I exported that, put it on my computer so that I have a backup of that. And also, I think notifications are important. Notifications where you can actually set it to let you know when certain things are happening. Could be certain things that are bad. It could be certain things that are positive, but letting it know what it is you want to be notified about. Because again, the goal of something like the health app is that it's running in the background. It's consolidating lots of information. And it would be great if you could gain information from it that you weren't already aware of, right? So, I mean, we don't have this to say, oh, gosh, it's telling me what my weight is because I already knew that. But it is then telling me, whether my fitness is improving or decreasing, some of those factors. So I would suggest going in there. The other thing is that at the bottom, this is probably pretty important as a first step, is to go in and make sure what apps you have on your phone that could give the health app some information. All right, so I'm going to click on apps here, and you'll see that I have a few different apps that have that I've given access to my health app. So, for example, MyFitnessPal, right, is a great fitness. I think, Alan, we may have done a bit on that a couple of years ago. But it's a great app where you can actually put in what you're eating and getting your calories consumed, but it also has a way of updating your some of the runs and things that you go on. Renfo is my scale, my digital scale. So every time I step on the scale and measure my weight, and yes, Jeff, that was really my weight, it is actually going to log that. And then I've given the health app access or permission to get that information from the Renfo app. So that's really helpful, right? Yeah.
Let's kind of back up and make sure everybody's following along with this. So if you want to have other health information piping into your Apple Health, if you download an app that is compatible with Apple Health, and that's important too. It's just like we've talked about in the past, Brian, with HomeKit or some of these things that you have to see either that icon or have to see that it does work with Apple Health, because there are some health related apps out there that don't communicate with Apple Health. Most do. I mean, I think it's pretty easy, common standard for it to share, but so we want to make sure if you get an app that you want to use, the Renfo, like you mentioned, I just got a Renfo scale as well to replace my Wise one that was not helping me very much.
Or was
and it did require you, really, it did help, unfortunately the wrong way. It did require you to download the Renfo app, which is fine.
Yep.
But the only thing that Renfo app is doing for me is it is then now connecting to my Apple Health. So when I step on my digital scale, it knows to pass that data right into my Apple Health app, and that's what I want. So, so these are apps that are basically gathering more data for you to feed into Apple Health that the iPhone by itself is not collecting for you natively.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I connect, or if I click on Renfo here, and it's saying these are the things that I have given it access to if that app were to gain them. right? So of
Mm-hmm.
course it only gains a few things like the body fat percentage and all of that because it's a scale. But if they had other devices, I've gone in and just said, turn it all on, and I'll have it access any of it, right? Allow my health app to grab any of that information because it's going to make my health picture more accurate. So with each of these, you're telling it what to have access to, what you're allowed to gain from that particular app.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you uninstall those apps, you can see they're still there. And this is helpful because if I click on that, it's showing me these are the things that you at one point were using with the health app, but no longer have on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of good because every once in a while you might realize, wait a minute, I deleted an app and I didn't realize it was actually helping me for some of my data.
It was
For example,
collecting
my
some good data
Connect app, right? The Connect is for Garmin. I don't
Mm-hmm.
use a Garmin anymore, so I got rid of it. But I also now know that if I ever got a Garmin again, I need to make sure I go and turn it back on so that I am kind of collecting that information, sleep information and everything. So
Brian, by having these additional apps now connected, and these are just apps, again, you installed on your phone, when you connect them, when you put them on your phone and you open them up, generally speaking, they should give you a prompt of some sort somewhere in there if you want to say that you want to connect the app to Apple Health. And just like where it asks you on apps if you want to have notifications turned on or if you want to share your contacts or calendar with the app, it's going to ask you the same thing about Apple Health. Do you want to share this data that this app is now going to collect with your Apple Health? And we're recommending yes, if you want to use Apple Health as kind of your hub of all your health information.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
So, once you connect those up and then they start to feed in, all of a sudden your data, and what's really kind of cool about it is that the data starts to show up, but it doesn't necessarily tell you, here's where it came from. Right. So it's not like you're looking at your summary and going, oh, well, okay, this came from this and this came from this. You can dig in and find that out, but it just seamlessly comes together to give you your health picture, which I think it
really just expands
really
all those things that you're seeing. So at the beginning, you're just seeing a very small list of the things you have. As you're adding more apps or devices that are compatible with Apple Health, all of a sudden you come back to your Apple Health menu and you've got more things that you now have access to, more data, more categories to work with.
Right.
Cool.
And you'll see there not only the apps, but the devices. So the devices would be like your watch and multiple phones. What I love about this as well is that every time you upgrade a phone, you're not losing your previous data, assuming that you have iCloud connected and it's saving your data. So as I look here at devices, you'll see several old phones. You'll see several watches, or at least several times that I've reinstalled software on this same watch. And it's keeping track of all that data, so historical data as well. In research studies, I'm a big fan of sharing data with research if it's useful. So I've kind of turned on research studies and said, let me know if there's any data that you want of mine for a research study, and I let it pretty much take anything of mine other than my medical data. I'll let it take all of my health data if it wants. So that's just me. I turn all that on. So that's the profile. And I would suggest when you get into the health app, go to the profile, go through each section one at a time, make sure the things are turned on that you want turned on. And, it's dialed in terms of its ability to be able to give you notifications and all that. So that's kind of the initial start. Make sure that all the data is coming in that you want. Then you can come back and you can decide which of this data is really important to you. It's all being collected at this point and all being gathered. Mm-hmm. But in several of these, Alan, and this is where you can kind of create your own favorites. So if everybody looks down at the bottom of the screen there, as you know, we've been on Browse at this point, which is showing all of these sections. And I can go over to favorites, and favorites would be all the ones that I've told it, this is what I want on my front screen. So when I come to health, this is actually what I want to see. I don't need to see everything that you're collecting on me. I only want to see the things that are important to me as a quick snapshot. So I can kind of scroll through, and I've had in here the cardio fitness, exercise, resting heart rate, steps. You can see walking steadiness, a little bit more about in a minute, workouts. And then, it's got some highlights down at the bottom, which I think is really cool, is that the health app does a nice job of telling you what it thinks you need to be aware of, right? And that you may not be aware of yet. It brings on articles and says, hey, by the way, your resting heart rate's a little high. Let me tell you what resting heart rate is, and let me tell you how you can, improve it.
Yeah, that's good.
So it does a really nice job. And I think this is something that more people just need to get into and start coming to on a little bit more of a regular basis to get this info.
So if I can, let me share, because I want to show something here real quick. So for example, if I'm looking at my activity, talking about this whole favorites on the summary tab, and let's say I look at my stand hours as a metric there I turn on, and I go to look at this and I can see some of my information. There's an option down towards the bottom under options. It says add to favorites. And if I star that, then that now is going to become, I'm part of that summary front page of favorites. So you can really, like Brian was saying, really customize what you want to see on that front page. So each item in your health app, if you go down, does have an option to allow it to be added to the favorites. So you could have an item
back to your favorite now, Alan. Yeah, go back to your favorite while you're talking there. And it should be there.
And
right?
stand hours is right there in the middle now.
Yep.
It was not there before. So yeah. So all that gets added. So that's great. I mean, again, you could have your summary could be one item from sleep, one item from activity, one item from anything. Just the things that are the most important to you that you want to view at one quick view. This is it. That's the summary is customized to you to view what you want to see up there.
Yep.
And then, like I said, also recommendations and other things and highlights that the Apple Health app is putting together for you to see are all available as well. So,
yep. And Alan, I'll give one more real quick piece of advice there too, if you scroll all the way up. So the way that you went through it is you were actually looking at the data that you thought was really interesting and said, give it a favorite. You can also go up to the top and click edit. And then if you click edit, it allows you to see all data and you can quickly star things there. Yeah. But, the way you showed, it means you can actually see what that data is, and then shows that it's important. Here is if you know what you want to see, right? You can go
two different ways to add it to your summary.
Right.
You can either see it in a quick list like this, where you just know what categories you're looking for and you go to it, or you go and find the data throughout your health app that's important to you and then add it to your favorites from there. Great. And you can also remove them, customize, change them up over time, however you wish to by editing here. Great. Good call.
Yep.
All right. I'll bring it back over to you here.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, if you did just that, right, you went to your profile, you set it up, made sure you had your medical ID information, make sure you were sharing it with the appropriate people, make sure you were being, medically conscious. And then you also went to some of the fitness things and said, all right, these are things that are important to me so that I can see what's really important on my summary so that you're getting a notice of that more regularly. Then I think it's also important maybe that we talk just a few minutes, Alan, if you don't mind, about some of the things that you may not understand why it's collecting that or what that data can really be useful for, right? And this is where I geek out a little bit in my world, right, and the exercise science world. But
all right, and for those of you watching at home, this is possibly the part of the show where Alan may start drifting off, like we talked about at the beginning of the show. So if you see that, give us a thumbs up. Let us know. I saw Alan's zoning out. So yeah, Brian, go ahead.
All right. So that's my challenge, right? Make you zone out. Okay. Well, let's take a look for just a few things here. I'm going to go back to the browse. And as we said before, the body measurements, that's something that you'll want to make sure that you're inputting on your own, or if you've got some things connected through outside sensors. But the other elements here, so let me just go to activity really quickly. And you'll notice that activity, as we talked about before, has things like energy, resting energy, active energy. Is trying to give you an estimation of the calories that it thinks you're burning with each of these areas. I would also kind of draw your attention to cardio fitness, right? If you're someone that really is kind of interested in whether or not you are getting fitter as a person. When we talk about cardio is your ability to do activities for a longer period of time, right? The ability to be able to have endurance, right? Which of course is a very important factor with fitness. So not just can you lift a lot of weight, but can you continue to exercise for a longer period of time and potentially use less or use more of the oxygen that your body is bringing in. It will actually give you estimates of what's called this VO2 max. right? And I think that's a really cool measure. It's normally something. Now, this is an estimate. Okay, the way you would truly measure VO2 max is you've probably seen videos of people doing this where, they're on a bike and they have a gas mask on, and they're breathing into this mask as they're going, and basically it's going into a big device. And what it's really doing is it's trying to see how much oxygen you're taking in, and then how much of that oxygen you're actually using. Because if you use it, it turns it into CO2 and you send it out, right? But if I'm really out of shape, and Alan, I can see you start to glaze over a little bit, but if I'm really out of shape, right? If I'm not very fit, then I'm going to breathe air in, oxygen, and I'm going to breathe it right back out because my body's not using it, right? So what VO2 max is basically saying, what's the amount of oxygen that my body can use effectively? So at the kind of the muscular level, can it use that oxygen? And if I can, then I can do a lot longer of fitness activities, right? If I can actually take the oxygen that comes in my bloodstream, use it. So what this does is this gives you a estimate of what your fitness level is. So when you say, I can go run a mile in this amount of time, well, that's great. That could mean that your legs are longer than mine. It could mean that you actually ran faster than me, or it could mean that you're fitter than me, but you don't really know. But if this is taking into account things like heart rate, things like blood oxygen level, right? It's saying that it's taking a much more detailed look at your fitness. So if you've got a watch that allows you to look at heart rate, and then it's able to kind of give itself a calculation of cardio fitness, I think that's a really important. It's kind of like, Alan, it's taking the difference between weight and body fat percentage. We know that weight isn't a really good measure of how fit you are, but we know body fat percentage is a much better measure, right? I mean, I could tell you I'm 182 pounds, which Jeff is making fun of at this point. But what really important is not how much I weigh, but it's how much of that weight is muscle and how much of that weight is fat, right? So that's a much more deep way of looking at fitness. This is the same thing about cardio. Cardio is telling you, your VO2 max is what it's estimating as your ability to do fit activities. So if I run faster and I breathe heavier and I also am able to go longer while keeping that heart rate at a certain rate, then that's going to give me a better cardiovascular measure. So these are things that the health app can do, but people often don't necessarily know why they should do that, right? So they should be.
I never would have guessed you were a professor if I hadn't been sitting here listening to this.
Well, I never would have guessed you were a student the way you're nodding off. That's exactly the student.
Actually, I would think that tips me off as a perfect student right now. So, that's really helpful. Actually, I did not have that metric it's being tracked because I have an Apple Watch. I didn't even realize it was there. So.
Yeah. So turn it on, right? It's one of these things that you may not realize it's being collected. If you have a watch or if you have some way of measuring something that has heart rate, it's going to start giving you estimates of that. And now I will say for it to do this, it needs you to actually do an activity for a longer period of time.
Okay. Well, then that's
so like if you just go and you do short walks and all of that, but it'll say like, if you go for a 30-minute run, we'll actually get a baseline of what your actual VO2 max is. But once at that point, then it starts to be able to show you trends. And I think trends are what's really important here. Am I getting better? Am I getting worse over time with lots of these things? So, so as you can see here, it's got all the workouts, some areas, different categories. I didn't tell it I wanted these in there. These were just workouts that were tracked via my watch. So as you can see, there's a lot of things that it still could do if I actually chose to turn those on. So, the activity level is taking the workout app and the information that is being brought in through that, and it's trying to give you an idea of your activity. All right.
Let me pause and back up and clarify for everybody there. So Brian mentioned the workout app. So we haven't really mentioned that yet, but there is a workout app on your Apple Watch if you have an Apple Watch. That will try to detect if it thinks that you are, or you can actually open it up and start one manually, if it thinks you're doing a workout routine. And that could be a indoor-outdoor walk, could be on a treadmill, could be any kind of cardio work, could be different classes that you may be taking.
Yep.
If it detects
Swimming,
that, it's going to
cycling.
ask you, cycling, sure. It's going to ask you, do you want to record this as an activity, as a workout activity? So that's good if you let it do that, because then it's going to be a little more focused on the data it's trying to collect from that activity. But again, it's going to feed all of that in. As you can see, Brian's summary there, it's got he was scrolling up earlier and you saw some different kind of specific workout activities it was showing. And that's because it was tracking that. The swimming distance, the swimming strokes, the cycling distance are all coming from that Apple Watch detecting those workouts that are happening there. So again, everything Brian is showing you so far, pretty much if you have a phone and a watch, you're getting all this. Is that correct, Brian? Is there any other equipment or device that you have that's feeding data into this?
Other than body fat percentage, which comes from my scale.
Your scale, right.
But other than that, it's watch. The watch is pretty much doing everything. And I would say if you really do get interested in, taking health to a different level, having the watch along with the phone, I mean, just opens up so many different metrics and so many kind of things that you might want to be aware of. So.
Okay. Let's hit a couple more highlights of some interesting things here.
Yeah, let me call attention to a couple of things. So hearing, the health app will also be able to track whether it's from your watch, I think also from your AirPods, which are AirPods, or even I'm not sure it's for the wired ones too as well, Alan. But it'll tell you here was the let's see if it will tell me this. There we go.
It'll
My headphone audio levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's wired as well as I only use wireless these days, or I have in a long time.
It's any of them. It's any headphones. Mm-hmm.
So it's basically telling you, are you turning your headphones up too loud? Is that going to be a concern for your hearing one day? It's telling me the notifications it's giving me based on my headphones. If it was too loud one day, noise, which would be coming from your watch. If you turn it on and say, hey, tell me if I'm in an environment that is damaging to my ears. And it's recognizing when things are really, really loud, and it's going to let you know that. So there's some incredibly cool things from the hearing that can happen. Heart is, if as we get older, this is where I think things like an Apple Watch can be incredibly helpful and beneficial. So if you've got an Apple Watch, not only does it things like fall protection and all of that can be really beneficial, but getting your heart rate is one thing, right? I mean, that's kind of a gimme. You can get that from all sorts of different wearables, right? These days, you can get your average heart rate. And of course, what's really key about heart rate is not only your resting heart rate, okay? And resting heart rate is kind of a general assessment of how fit you are. So if your resting heart rate is really low, that means that your body can function with less beats circulating, your blood and your oxygen throughout your body than someone else. And if you're not very fit, then your heart has to beat more constantly, even just to do standard things like sitting and relaxing. So I will say, if you're really interested in that, Alan, your data is probably a little bit more interesting here. So because you wear your watch when you sleep, is that right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah. So that's the key way to get resting heart rate, is to wear your watch when you sleep, because that's the true resting heart rate is when you wake up in the morning before you've even started to move. How many beats per minute is your heart having to beat? And that's telling you how fit you are, right? If you've got we could get into stroke volume and all that other stuff. But basically, if your heart doesn't have to beat that fast in order for you to do just resting activity, it means you're efficient. It means your body's efficient. And as you get more efficient, it has to beat less to do the same amount of work. So that's where resting heart rate is really important. And you'll want to see that over time. You want to see that hopefully I have a lower resting heart rate, which means that I'm fitter. And it means that my heart is more efficient in what it's doing. So,
hey, Brian, as the resident kinesiologist and exercise scientist, is this good for me? I mean,
50s are good. Yeah, 50s are good.
Are they really good, or is it?
They're good.
Okay.
They're good. No, they're really good. Yeah, I mean, so an average resting heart rate is usually in the 60s to 70s, and it kind of depends on what really resting is. But 50s is good. 50s is
Okay.
good. It means that,
I just want to, all I care about is, am I okay?
you're
Am I
good. You're
All
good.
right.
Yeah.
Good.
You're good. We're not concerned about you right now. Right.
Awesome. Not on
So,
that anyway. But, yeah.
and then you also see, some other really interesting things about the what it's getting from heart rate. And this is coming from the watch, but it'll also get from we're getting some.
I'm getting validation from viewers, which is great. Thank you,
Yes,
Shane. I'm glad to know I'm
yeah.
good.
Shane is
I really
validating.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm all seriousness. I really don't know what these numbers mean, good or bad. So it's very helpful to hear
I could
people
really
say
mess with you right now,
that
right?
I'm okay. Good. Thank
Alan,
you.
you need to go to the doctor right now.
Yes. If you'd seen my numbers and be like, Alan, I want you to stop the recording right now and call your doctor. Yeah. All right. So what else we have?
So,
Some other
I think just a couple of things to note. Variability, right? Variability is basically saying, over time, how variable your heartbeats are.
Okay.
And of course, you don't want a crazy amount of variability, right? But you want to recognize when that variability becomes an issue. And I think this is really the key here, right? Is that if you've got these things turned on, the health app becomes kind of your resident digital doctor, to where it's taking all that information and say, hey, by the way, something looks a little off or something has changed. And I think that, for everybody, this is why I say, if you're going to use an app like this, whether it's the health app or whether you're using some other thing like MyFitnessPal, look at change, because change is what tells us, what's happening, whether or not, if my, I could have a measure of body fat that wouldn't be that valid. I mean, stepping on a scale that tries to tell you your body fat percentage really isn't the most valid way of doing it. But it is somewhat reliable in that if I continue to step on that scale and I see my body fat percentage go up, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It may not be that my body fat is actually that percentage. And it may not be that my heart rate variability is actually this level of variability. But if I see that number change from the same metric or for the same device, then that could be a problem, right? And that's what's really good about this.
And that's what the Apple Health app notifications are really focused on too. They're looking for notifying you of when something changes. There's a specific set of notifications you can turn on for trends, meaning if it starts to see something trending in a direction, that's when it's going to notify you. Because, I mean, if you're at a certain level and it stays that level, like you said, that level may or may not be 100% accurate, but it's consistent. It's when it sees it's starting to trend in a negative direction, is it's going to notify you and say, hey, this is starting to move in a way you want to pay attention to. So
Right. And I think that's why you want to continue to check in with this, not to be overly stressed about it and say, oh my gosh, I'm very anxious to see what's going on. But if you start to see trends, and the app has gotten even better. I have not been in recently, I'm not taking my own advice, but have going in again, and it says, okay, here's a trend that's changing, or here's a trend that you need to be aware of, is something really important to do. So keep looking at it. I'll also mention one other thing, and this is something that you may not realize that it's doing, because it's only been doing this actually for the last, I think, maybe a year or so, is changing its recognition of, or it's getting much more sensitive in terms of this mobility section.
Okay.
And so mobility, it's kind of cool because it's starting to analyze the way in which you're mobile, not just like how far you went and, how fast you got there, but it's starting to recognize the way in which you get there, right? You can see here, like the step length, right? It's taking what it thinks is the average of your general steps as you're walking, right? The length of that step or the speed at which you walk. As you can see here, this is another really cool one, this double support time. Okay, this is looking at my gait, and gait is, the way in which we walk, right? So double support time, just for people to know, is the amount of time in your walking gait in which both feet are on the ground. So as I get older, I'm probably going to shuffle my feet more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which means that if both feet are going to be on the ground more, right? That's called increased double support time. And double support time is something that you do to protect yourself later in life. But it also could be something really interesting if maybe I'm not that old and I started to increase my double support time. That could mean that I'm slowing my gait pattern, or that I'm protecting myself, or that something else is happening cognitively, neurologically, that I'm not aware of. So I think it's incredibly cool to have it tracking this, right? Whereas a few years ago, it wasn't doing that. It was just doing like a pedometer. How many steps did it think you were taking? You've got things like walking asymmetry, right? To say whether or not it believes that your, step on one side of the body is different than the other side of the body. So maybe you have a limp, or maybe you have a slight limp that you weren't aware of in the way in which your stride is going. That could be the sign of, the result of a stroke, or the result of something that is, an injury based, right? So you're starting to recognize that the asymmetry of your walking is a problem. These are all things that I didn't even realize it was gathering until a couple of months ago. And I pulled it up and I'm like, oh, wow. It'd be really nice if Apple did a better job of letting you know that it was doing this, because this is really fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so Brian, this is looking at mine. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, please do.
So I joke, my walking speed's like triple what yours was today, but I also know why, because I'm a mall walker. I do a lot of walking around the mall at super fast speed. No, I don't.
Wow. Okay.
But that would explain it though.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I was doing quite a bit of walking, a lot faster pace today, so it makes sense. But that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, you get it today, and of course, I would just really stress, if you're going to look at this, try not to look at today that much.
Right.
Because so when you start looking at today, it's like, all right, that could have been a lot of things. But if you start looking at 6 months, and starting to see whether or not you see a trend line at 6 months. Right. That could be a really interesting thing to say, wait a minute, I'm doing, my average walking speed is, been trending upwards or downwards, or my double support time is trending upwards. Really cool things to recognize, and things that I didn't realize that even the health app was doing. But they can be fascinating to be able to.
It's still amazing. All of this collected by your phone and your watch.
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. There's not anything else that's contributing this on my end. The other things I'll just mention, Alan, so mobility is great. Nutrition is great if you can have an external app, right? There's some other things we can feed that in.
Yeah, let's clarify this too. I want people to understand. Yes, nutrition data is great to have in your Apple Health app. Any of the apps you can get. So Apple Health by itself will not do anything to track your nutrition, but you can manually go in and try to enter things. You have always a ability to add in your own manual data points on things. But if you get an external app for nutrition, mostly it's going to be where, I know some apps you can key in very quickly and easily, like what you just ate and how much of it. Some of them will let you take photographs of food and try to analyze from that. So, but again, if it works with Apple Health, it'll feed it into your nutrition tab. But out of the gate,
I think that's right.
Nothing's in nutrition.
No, it's not. It's not. It does not have a fitness. Although I think that's probably coming. I think that's going to be one of the things that'll allow you to build in. So MyFitnessPal, I'll give a shout out to them again. I think that app is fantastic. But that allows you to go and, there was a point in time where I was trying to keep track of everything that I was eating, just to be aware. It's like, wow, how many calories am I really eating? And you'd go in and say, well, I just had 2 eggs, and I just had this half a cup of cereal and all of this, and it will then track. And if that's connected to your health app, it's going to feed in to say, here's what your nutrition stats are like. Just some other things that, it's kind of helpful to know. The sleep, I know you do, I don't. But I think that's really a great way to kind of recognize another form of your fitness. And there's Alan. Yeah.
Yeah. So my sleep.
Do you want to talk about that just a second?
Yeah, sure. So I do wear my Apple Watch to bed because I'm really in tune and wanting to watch my sleep. And I feel like that's the most accurate way to do it. They do have sleep apps you can get that are meant to use your phone as your sleep tracker, your sleep monitor. It requires you to either have your phone under your pillow or somehow off to the side listening to your noises and breathing. I like having my watch on and letting it do my sleep tracking. So it gives me all the things I need in terms of, the average time in bed and average time of sleep. But then if I really want to get a little more detailed with it, I can see the amount of consistency in my sleep, my heart rate during sleeping. There's some other things where was it? Gosh.
Well,
I'm guessing.
Alan, everybody should notice. Look at some of the things that are popping up
Oh
with
yeah.
Alan here, like the
Here's my
highlights of
heart rate
sleep.
during sleep.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Alan, now slide back over to mine really quickly.
Hmm.
Let me show you. So, if I click on sleep here, and I do not wear my watch to bed,
Yeah.
it still is trying to get my sleep. But this is something pretty important to note, that all it's saying is you had put your phone to charge, and
Hmm.
then you grabbed it again. You can see the little gaps here, right? Like here was this morning where I got up at
Yeah.
4 and got on my phone, and it's like, oh, you're awake. But it
Yeah.
only knew I was awake because I grabbed my phone. Right now, this would be a lot more useful. As you can see, everything stops right then. All it's telling me is my
Yeah.
schedule. It's going to be a lot more useful if I would wear my watch to bed, or if I would use one of those apps to have my phone recognize sounds and when I'm
Yeah.
awake and all of that. So this is where
The
you can
one thing I've
truly
noticed.
expand this to make it
Yeah.
incredibly useful, but
Well, the
don't
one thing I've noticed with
buy
sleep.
into it if you don't have those.
Yeah.
Yep.
Apple Health is still fairly new and not as progressive on the sleep tracking within the Apple Health app. I get a lot more data from the actual sleep app I purchased
Oh,
to
sure.
work and track my sleep. If I go into that app, it shows me the amount of actual restful sleep versus non-restful sleep, and it just shows me all my peaks and valleys throughout the evening. That data doesn't all get pushed in the Apple Health. The Apple Health app pulls a lot of the basic information I need from sleep, good enough to look at. But again, there are some situations where the Apple Health is not going to get all the extent of data that it could from an external app. So it's going to try to pull in what it can, but you may be better
Right.
served going to the external app to get some of that data. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. If you're really into sleep, get either start wearing your watch to bed, and get yourself an external a third party app, because they are a little
Yeah.
better,
Cool.
or one of the rings that also will be able to track some of that data. The last thing I'll mention is, Alan, you mentioned just when we jumped on together before we started recording that your COVID vaccination had actually been uploaded to your medical data, right? And that was done without you having any input in that. You I guess had connected it through your medical provider, or what?
I had Apple Health does allow you to try to connect your Apple Health data with your healthcare provider if your healthcare provider is part of a network that will actually interact with it. So I remember I had set that up quite a while back, where I'd keyed in that, hey, I am part of this primary care group where I go to as my primary doctor. And it let me register my records there. And that was all in the settings. I'll kind of pull up where that is in a minute. But because of that, when I just happened to open up my health app today to look at it, there were actually notifications waiting on the summary page that said, hey, we noticed that you had your vaccination records are now available to pull in. And even though I got my vaccinations, last year and months ago, they're just now coming available to me. So it did able to pull those into the Apple Health app automatically. And I could also add them to the vaccination cards to my Apple Wallet, which is pretty cool. So again, it didn't do a very good job of letting me know this, unfortunately, until I actually opened up the Apple Health app. But I kind of like that things are starting to happen.
Yeah.
So I assume somewhere there was a switch flipped with my provider to start sharing that vaccination status back out to that.
But doesn't that get you like super excited about the possibilities in the future that, if you're someone that's, if this becomes your portal, right? And of course there could be others through the Android app and all of that, but if this became your portal of this is where my health data is, you go and have a doctor visit, they get your tests, they get all of that, and it starts to import in here because you've connected it. Now, all of a sudden, right? And I think I don't want to get on my soapbox too long here, but I've mentioned this before that, my hope is that all of this data that's being collected right now, and 10 years from now, we find out, God forbid, I have Alzheimer's and I develop it, 10 years from now, and it's going to be able to go back and look and see my instability of my walking that started 10 years ago. Or my double support time in walking started, 10 years ago progressively. And it's going to start to make connections and say, wait a minute, we could actually start to predict who's going to have this or who's more likely to have it, because now we have 10,
Yeah.
20 years of data from people's phones that they
Good
didn't even
point.
realize we were collecting. And I think that that's why, to me, I'm a big fan of, if you can connect this with your healthcare provider, get as much data as it will allow you to. You can tell it you don't want to share that data with anybody. That's fine. But man, the more data that can be collected, that eventually can be maybe de-identified data that can be shared, whether it's through research studies or just through the Apple platform. I'm telling you, that we could find lots of really, really cool connections that we didn't know were there, and we just need data to do that. Machine learning to
Agreed.
start digging into
Great.
it. So yeah.
So just as a quick follow up on that. So yes, in your Apple Health app, in your browse window down at the bottom, you have the ability to add an account. And that is if you want to search and see if your healthcare provider is available for connection. Now, if I chose the one that I belong to, it's going to ask me some identifying information
Yeah.
to be able to allow it to link up to make sure it's me, so forth. But once it is, as you can see, my FryCare physician practices, which is my family care doctor, is there. And all of a sudden I have the kind of clinical visits whenever I've gone into the office and had an appointment. It's updated that for me.
Oh man, are
And
we
that
going to
is where,
concede a colonoscopy? Is there video or anything that comes
no,
with that?
I didn't tell you
Yeah.
about my colonoscopy,
Oh,
did
you
I?
did. Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned
Just
it on the
for everybody,
podcast. You
for
mentioned it on the
everybody,
podcast.
oh, did I? I was
Yeah,
pretty
you
public
did.
about it. Yeah,
You
I did.
did.
I woke up during my colonoscopy. Thank you. Yes, this happened to me. And I will never forget that moment either.
Ooh,
So that
river.
was a horrific 45 seconds of my life that will be permanently scarred into my brain.
What are you doing down
From
there?
here. I know,
Okay,
yeah.
so
But
let's.
but as you can see, because of that, now if I go to immunizations, it automatically pulled in my
Nice.
immunizations, including the COVID vaccine, and it shows me all the data there from that.
Very
So
cool. Okay,
again,
so I
by
haven't done that
connections,
yet. I need to try to do that. Yep.
if you can get your healthcare provider, if they are a registered agent that can be linked on this, and you can find them on that provider list, you get them connected. It's still up to them when they push the data back out to you, but if you've got the connection made, it can start to populate a lot of these things in there. So things like lab results and the medications I'm on are getting automatically populated from my doctor into my health app as well, which is great.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, the perfect world, Brian, is I can walk into a doctor's office and not have to fill out the same paperwork over and over again, that I can honestly just say, look, it's all right here. It's automatically being shared and transmitted. They have everything they need. It can get easily moved to the right provider that needs
Yep.
it. And I have access to it as well. So I can always see what they're seeing. And we're getting close. We're getting
Yep.
close. This is the closest, even opening up today and seeing some of the updates. I'm feeling like we're closer than we've ever been on this.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Alan, I should probably just legally, we should probably say at this point in time that please do not use any sort of digital app like this as a way of determining your own health or determining your
Yeah, good
own
point.
medical emergencies, right? And this is something if anybody followed when Apple started, they came out with the watch that would allow you to do an EKG to kind of do a look at heart rate variability over a period of time. Well, of course, it's not doing the actual EKG that would require sensors around your chest to be able to see your heart rate's true variability. But it's giving you an estimate. And I think that that's something you want to take with all of these. If you see something on here that says, wait a minute, I just got a notification that my heart rate variability has increased. That does not mean, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack and, I need to call 911 right now. What that does mean, though, is that these are things that you should take as signs that potentially it's time to go see a doctor, right? And I think if that happens, if you are someone that looks at your app and starts to see trend lines and says, wait a minute, that is concerning, and it's not just a blip, and you reach out to your doctor, and the ability to be able to go and show your doctor this and then say, well, let's do a true EKG, let's do a different test, and then we find out if you're okay. That's what this is all about, right? The fact that
good point.
The person that's out, farming and doesn't realize these things are happening and waits until that once every 2 years that they go to the doctor to recognize this, that's what we want to get rid of, right? I would much prefer people to be a little bit more aware and reach out, get the doctor to look at you and then say, no, you're fine. That's okay. I don't want this to be a hyper, aware thing to where you're overstressing about it. But,
Yeah.
If we have the ability to see things prior to them being a real issue, I think we should take advantage of that. So I think that, no, this is not going to be a diagnosis. This is not going to give you any diagnoses at all, but it can show you signs that hopefully will be helpful. And I look forward to the day where I could walk into my doctor's office, hand them my phone, or touch my phone to a computer that they have, and it downloads all of my health data from the last 6 months, and they can look at it and say, do you see anything that is concerning on top of what you're going to do? I would love that, right? Because we all know we've been to the doctor and we say, I have this pain, but guess what? It's not happening today. Sorry, I can't tell you where it is today. But if I have the 6 months data of something, everybody wins in that case.
Very valuable.
And I truly think it's great.
Well, Brian, one last thing I wanted to mention before we wrap this up talking about this. So we didn't even mention the middle tab on this app, and I'm just going to quickly mention what this is, this sharing. We already talked about sharing with your healthcare provider, but you can also share with other people, let's say family members or other people that you want to share this health data with. Think about it this way. You've got a loved one, a family member, son, daughter, anybody that wants to be able to have access to this data. That could be helpful in a situation where you're not able to use the data for any reason, or maybe you're not in a state where you can really make the best use of it, but somebody else could and help you with some healthcare decisions. So you do have the option of sharing, and it does say you can really control what level of information you're sharing with somebody. If you don't want them to see your vitals, you don't want them, but you want them to see maybe your movement, or you want them to see your stableness, or you want them to see some of that. You can pick and choose what you share with other people. And then, and they can also get notifications based on your data. So if they want to turn on a notification to say, this person has given me access to show their heart rate, and I'd like to be notified if their heart rate gets above a certain level for a certain amount of time, then they can get notified. So again, we're just broadening this net of interconnectivity and sharing of data that we all are able to kind of watch and help the person we care for. So I think it's great. So definitely take some exploration. Don't just go in here and just check on everything and share everything with everybody, but pick and be very strategic with it. But think about what data would be helpful for somebody else to use. Yeah. And it's right there in the app to use. Yep.
And I just want to quickly call out Shane. Thank you for your comments you've been making along the way. I appreciate you listening. He's got some great ideas here of, the data analysis at your fingertips and the way in which we can use this in the future. So, thanks for listening and commenting. But, I agree. This is something that is there. I think we gloss over it. I think, even I, who is really into this sort of thing, didn't realize how much it advanced, and every time it continues to get a little bit better. So I think, Alan, can we just finish up maybe with quick tips? And that we've already mentioned a little bit, but please, if you go to the app, set it up correctly, or at least set it up so that it's got your accurate information. If you wanted to use it for things like, estimating fitness and all of that, go in and update when things like your body dimensions change, if your weight changes, if your height changes, go ahead and update that so it has the most accurate information. I think this app is much stronger if you have some sort of peripheral device, a watch, a band, something that's gathering heart rate data. So please go and check that often. Try to use as many of these different third-party apps that you're comfortable with to bring in data so you get a better picture. Use the notifications, right? It's one of the things that I actually just today, as I was going and researching for this, went in and tried to change my notifications of let me know when there's some trends that are changing. Let me know when there is things that I need to be aware of. I want to know. I want to know these things. But before, I didn't think they was helpful because I didn't think the app was mature enough. It's mature now. And again, just like the Apple TV, which was useless for me initially, has now become my main place in which I go to be able to look for content. This is becoming my main place to look for health information. So do go in, go in often, make sure that you dial it in so that it's collecting good data. If you can get some peripherals to get it a little bit more useful, do that. And then I would say make sure that you're sharing it. If nothing else, if you use this as your medical ID, and make it so that if you did have an accident, you had something that people would be able to have the information they need in order to give you help. Then at a minimum, that's a great benefit here. So.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the first thing. If you're going to get on board using this as a true tool on your phone, first thing is fill in your vitals, fill in your body information and your own personal information, and then make sure that medical ID screen, like Brian mentioned, is filled out. Yep. Even if you choose not to share with anybody else, you don't want to share with even your healthcare provider or whatever. This is all for emergencies. This medical ID is so that if somebody needs to get you help, they have the information they need to do so. So,
yep. That's
good.
So this is great.
Good stuff.
So I hope people will take advantage of it. If you have an iPhone, look into it if you haven't already, and and jump in and see if there's some things that we can gain from it. Because of course, health and fitness is an important area that we need to be aware of, and here's a great resource to be able to use. So,
yeah. It's great. Well, this is very, very helpful and enlightening for me too. I mean, I've used this health app in the past, but not to the extent I probably need to. And this got me a little more reinvigorated to go in there and dig around a little bit and try to find some other uses for it. So thank you. And we can tell, obviously,
so
the topic, Brian's I'm not going that far.
Okay. Yeah.
Apple has helped me. You just let me know about it. And that's basically all you did. No, I can tell.
You are Brian, one of my students. There you go.
Brian's very passionate about this, as you can tell, and has a lot of experience in the field. So thanks on that, Brian. Well, that's the Apple Health app. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you use it? Are there reasons maybe you don't use it, or you use some other tool or device? What's some metrics you're getting on Apple Health that are maybe the most meaningful to you that we didn't cover? We'd love to hear any of those comments from you.
Yeah.
This is probably something I think maybe even warrants a follow-up, Brian, in the future. So kind of do a little bit of a refresh to see if there's anything new. As new versions of the Apple Watch come out in the phone, they're able to track and measure maybe more and more things than they have before. As more tools and gadgets come out that can sync up with Apple Health, it's going to provide you with even more information. So we'll definitely plan on following up in the future. But in the meantime, if they do have some feedback for us, Brian, how do they go about getting a hold of us?
Yeah, so you can send us an email at info@themesh.tv. And as Alan said, let us know about your uses with the Health app, or if you have other external devices, sensors, things that kind of enhance the use of this app. And actually, Alan, I don't know about you, but I'm not aware of the Android version of this or the ideal Android version of this. So if you have some experience with that, let us know kind of what would be the app, kind of the equivalent or the concerns. I know there can be some security concerns, differences between Apple and Google, but let us know what you use, if you have some advice or if you have some questions that we can address in the future. So info@themesh.tv. You can also go to our website at www.brothers-in-tech.com. You can tell that my medication I'm not taking anymore because I actually read that appropriately. brothers-in-tech.com. And that's where you can get previous episodes. You can start to see information that we'll start to share there regarding reviews and other suggestions. I think, Alan, how long do we have before another a suggestion? We just did a suggestions episode, right? Not long ago.
I don't know. I think we're close. Close. We might. So
we might be in the next episode or two. We'll give you another suggestion. So where we come and bring some advice on tech gadgets that you might look into. So I think Alan's got a couple that he wants to potentially revoke his previous suggestions on, or at least adjust. So look out for that. But the website's where we'll actually put some of that information a little bit sooner. So,
well, only because, Brian, it is, only because it is pertinent to the conversation. We're kind of done. If anybody's already left us, that's fine. I just figure while I've got Brian here, I just want to kind of share this because it's funny. So, all right, hold on. Let me turn this back off. So, yes, talking about revoking suggestions. I mean, I've shared with everybody the drama I had in the past with my Wise digital scale.
Oh yeah, the scale,
which
right?
Is right here in my hands.
As a paperweight.
No, you know what's underneath my feet right now? It's my trash can, and it's actually propped up against the trash can, ready to go out to the trash. I did go ahead and get a new the Renfo digital scale that you mentioned earlier as well, and
you happy with
just
it
got
so
in
far?
a couple days ago, so trying that. But I wanted to show you. I just thought this was funny. Let me see if I can bring this up. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. So as I look at my body measurements, I want you to see something interesting here.
Let's do that.
As I look at, I want you to see this historical. Yeah. Okay. So the line to the left, which you see started like going down, and it's actually at a pretty good level. Okay.
You were feeling good about yourself, right?
That was from the Wise scale. And then when it dropped down to that lowest point right down there, the lowest little point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am doing really, really good. I'm very happy. This is great. That's at the moment somebody walked into my house and tried the scale and be like, oh, this scale's not right. And sure enough, I tried to give it another day or two. And then when I got the new scale, I'm like, yeah, it's definitely a lot different. So anyway, I just thought visual presentation to show.
That's funny.
You can even see how I was feeling so good because this data was just going further down and down. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing so great. And then I found out it was wrong. So yes, I have the new scale. So now I almost want to go back, and I feel like I need to delete all the data points before, just so it doesn't throw me off. Going
you're getting a ton of notifications like, "What did you do?"
I know, right?
Did you take a vacation,
Alan. Slow down, take it easy. Whatever you're doing, you need to get back on track. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought while we're talking health, and I figured for the very, very few people still sticking araned.
Jeff says he would just say that the new one is the broken one and just go with the old one, right? Just to make yourself feel better.
Like this new scale doesn't do anything right.
Yeah. There's an exercise science professor for you. Yeah.
It was consistently 13 to 15 pounds off. So
man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
My entire family was using that scale, and it's crushed. We were all just devastated when we found that out. So anyway, All right. Well, that was it. I just wanted to get that in there while we're talking about revoking some of our past recommendations. We may have some new ones to share here shortly. Okay. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to Brothers in Tech. We will be back next time with another tech-related project or discussion topic, and also soon with some recommendations on a future episode, so stay tuned for that. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh, this is where I'm supposed to play something, so just wait.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I always forget to play this. All right. Bye-bye.
It's only a tech podcast.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.